third graders, we are ready for chapter number 9 in our story, Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. As a quick review, chapter number 8, Avon had kind of an odd experience at lunch at school. There was 3 girls that came up to talk to her. Now, they weren't rude, they weren't disrespectful, they weren't bullies, but they certainly weren't very friendly to Avon. And in chapter number 9, Avon is yet again eating lunch at school. She has another interaction with another student, but this interaction, completely different. Chapter 9. I decided to spend my next lunch period in the library. I knew I could get there 2 different ways, the busy route, which went right past the cafeteria, and the quiet route, which went the long way around the office. I opted for the longer, quieter route, anyway to avoid more stairs. As I rounded the corner, I nearly tripped over a boy who was sitting on the sidewalk up against the wall. I glanced down. He was eating his lunch all by himself. I looked away and I mumbled, "Sorry," as I hurried towards the library. As I walked away, I heard him softly say behind me, "That's okay." I entered the library and I set my bag down on the table. I glanced around. I only saw 1 other student and a couple of librarians. Most of the kids probably like to use their lunch period to, eat lunch and socialize and all of that. I felt a pang of loneliness as I scanned a row of books, searching for an exciting adventure story to take me away. I pulled out a couple of books with my foot and I carried them between my chin and my shoulder to the table. I carefully sat them down as quietly as I could. I sat down and I opened up Journey to the Center of the Earth. Back at home in Kansas, my great-grandma had gotten me an e-reader for Christmas. The e-reader was a revolution for me. No more cumbersome pages. I could just slide my toe effortlessly across the screen and turn the page. But I still like to pick up a paper book from time to time because I didn't want to get out of practice turning the pages. After all, I couldn't get all of my school books on an e-reader. Before I had finished the first page of my book, I heard a dog barking. I looked around, wondering why a dog would be in the library. I didn't see one anywhere, but I did see a boy watching me from the other side of the room. He looked away when our eyes met. I felt my cheeks grow hot as I turned my attention back to my book. He was probably staring out of curiosity, like everybody else. I heard another bark. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the boy. I glanced that way. I still didn't see any dog, but then the oddest thing happened. The boy barked at me. I didn't know whether to make eye contact with him or to look away. I didn't know if something was wrong with him, like he was insane and he could attack me at any moment, or if he was making fun of me in some completely bizarre way. I decided to go back to my book. I excelled at ignoring people. I read for a couple more minutes before he barked again. Maybe I wasn't so good at ignoring people after all. I got up from my seat and I walked towards him. He stared down at his book as I came closer. When I was finally standing in front of him, he slowly raised his eyes to my face. His lightly freckled cheeks blazed red, much like mine. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, "but are you barking at me?" I hadn't thought that the guy's cheeks could get any redder, but they did. "Yeah," he stammered. "I'm sorry." "Are you making fun of me?" "Oh, no," he barked again. I can't help it. I have Tourette's syndrome." I stared at him. "You have what?" "I have Tourette's syndrome," he repeated. "What's that?" The boy cleared his throat and barked, and then said, "Tourette's syndrome is a neurological disorder that causes involuntary motor and oral tics." He tugged on his messy light brown hair in a nervous way. I couldn't believe it. He had just recited his well-rehearsed explanation of his disability like I had done hundreds of times before. The boy looked away from my face down to my non-arm area, and he exclaimed, "Whoa, you don't have any arms," in a "were you aware of this fact" sort of way. His response to my missing arms was so direct that I had to smile. I glanced down and I shrieked, causing him to jump a little bit. "Oh my gosh, I knew I forgot something today." He sat there expressionless for a little while, like he didn't know what to make of my bad joke. How did you lose your arms? He finally asked. I shrugged. Ugh, I'm always misplacing stuff. I probably left them in the fridge when I got my milk out this morning. Really? They could be anywhere. He grinned and then barked. Were they amputated for some reason? Usually people pretended that they didn't notice my missing arms at all or acted weird about, like those girls yesterday. It was a relief to have someone be so honest about their thoughts in his head. I sat down at the table and I leaned in close to him. He didn't lean away from me. Instead, he leaned in closer. Have you ever been to the circus? I asked before beginning my newest story, one that I hadn't tried out yet. No. Well, I said, I used to be a trapeze artist. Do you know what that is? Well, don't they hang from ropes and stuff? Like acrobats or something? Oh, they do a lot more than that. They do all kinds of tricks, like swinging from the ropes and doing flips in the air before grabbing another rope. They often work in pairs with one person holding onto the other person, swinging them up in the air and catching them after they're done with a flip. Super cool stuff like that. Awesome, he said, clearly impressed. But how do you do that with no arms? Do you use your legs like a monkey? No, I used to have arms. His hazel eyes grew wide. Used to have? I nodded. Yeah, you see, my partner and I were trying out this new routine. I was going to flip 3 times in the air before he caught me by the arms. But the speed I needed to do such an amazing stunt was just too much. And when he caught me, I closed my eyes and I breathed in deeply for drama. When he caught me, my shoulder sockets came loose and my arms ripped right off. He gasped. What? It was awful, I went on. He was just hanging up there holding on to some arms and blood showering down on the screaming audience. It was all over the news. Didn't you see it? We continued staring at each other like we were in a contest to see who would blink first. Finally, he grinned a little and then a lot. And then he started laughing. You're totally joking, he said, and laughed even louder. I was happy that he found my story so funny. Keep it down, Connor, the librarian said as she walked by with a stack of books. This is still a library. He smiled at the librarian and then barked at her. As she walked away, he turned back to me, still chuckling. That's Mrs. Wright. She's super nice. She lets me sit in here during lunch, even though my tics are sometimes really loud. Hardly anybody's in here during lunch, so it's the best part of my day. He tugged at his hair again. So, is that what you tell everyone? That your arms were torn off in a circus accident? Nah, that's just my newest story. I was born like this. The truth is totally boring, so I make up stories for fun. I have lots of them if you'd like to hear. He nodded. What's your name? Avon. I'm Connor. I'd shake your hand, but... He motioned towards my armless area, blinking his eyes rapidly, and then barking as he did so. But you have horrible warts all over your hands? I said. Connor laughed again. You're funny, Avon. I blushed. My skin is so fair that even the slightest flush on my cheeks makes me bright red. I was probably neon right now. I once Googled excessive blushing and found out that there's a terrifying name for my condition. It's idiopathic craniofacial erythema. I went to school the next day and I dramatically announced, I have idiopathic craniofacial erythema. My teacher called my mom out of concern for my health that evening. Connor blinked rapidly and barked again. How long have you been going to school here? I started a few days ago, I said. My family moved here from Kansas. Kansas? Connor repeated. You ever see any tornadoes? Sure, we had a storm cellar and everything. Lots of people do. Did you ever have to get in it? Oh, yeah, I said. But luckily, our house never got destroyed or anything. I thought you were going to tell me some crazy story about how your house got swirled up in a tornado and you were in it or something, he said. No, I just tell stories about my arms. Though, come to think of it, losing my arms in a tornado would be a great story. I can see how the tornado could suck them right up. I pondered at this for a moment. I'll have to think that one over and share it later. Cool. I can't wait to hear it, he said. I'd love to see a tornado.